Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 30 of the Hazy Sports Podcast. Olympic hockey is in the books, and Charlie, we knew this was either going to be a celebration or a bit of a therapy session. Unfortunately, we got hit with a little bit of a gut punch, and it's probably leaning more therapy session here today. We're about 3 hours removed from that gold medal game. How are you feeling?
I'm actually not too bad. I had a pretty quick reset because my son had a game. Basically, the second the overtime goal went in, we had to hustle out to get to the arena. So just seeing them back out there is like, okay, back to reality here. But yeah, it's too bad. But I don't know. I for some reason it's not bothering me that much because they did dominate the pretty much the entire game. Like if it was like a 5-1 loss, I'd be pissed. Like, what are we doing here? But I
Yeah,
think the way they played makes it a little easier.
it's a bit of a gut punch either way, but it's not like Nagano style kick in the nuts. But maybe because we've seen a few golds, we've had success in the Four Nations. It does feel like it would have almost been worse losing to Finland or the Czech Republic in one of those previous games. But like you said, it's hard to go away that mad in terms of how well they played today. Probably their best game of the whole Olympics. Got to give it to Hellebuyck. Basically kept the U.S. in it.
And just there was no bad goals, right? There's no cheap shit, no
Yeah,
bounce off the shin pad, nothing. Like they were all legit goals. So that makes it a little easier to take. And I mean, you got goalies. Like that's just basically it.
if you would tell me ahead of time that you got McDavid with a breakaway for the game winner, Celebrini with a breakaway for the game winner, and McKinnon with an open net for the game winner. I would have liked those chances.
And Tays, if you told me Tays had a shot from the middle of the crease with a wide open net, that has to be the most unbelievable save I've ever seen.
That was crazy. Yeah, it's kind of like the Binnington save from the Four Nations, and yeah, Hellebuyck definitely I think changed his perception. Obviously, he had won a Hart, won a Vezina, but there was some doubts in terms of whether he could be a big game goalie, and he played about as as well as you could play on the biggest stage there is. So that's got to kind of boost his confidence heading back to the NHL after that.
I would say so. Like that, I don't I don't know how you can play any better. When we just kept getting chance after chance and it started to sink into you, like, I don't know if we're gonna get another goal here. Like it's kind of like in football and that when you'll throw a deep pass and the guy drops it and you only get so many of these chances and when we just couldn't friggin' bang one in, I'm like this is kind of leaning the wrong way here.
It kind of had that feel as if it was, everybody just starting to grip the stick a little tighter as more and more time went on. But we were just dominating the play so much that in my head I thought there's one of these has got to go in. Remain confident right up to the end, and then once it goes to that 3-on-3 overtime, it feels like pretty much a coin flip. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like BX has said in the intermission, it's like which goalie is going to make a big save. And again, you can't fault Binnington on that goal. Hughes made a beautiful shot to win it.
And it could have been over 25 seconds before that if not for the insane glove save that he made on Quinn Hughes. Like, holy shit, I jumped
Yeah,
right up.
yeah. I mean, Binnington on a whole, like I can't think of any really bad goals that he let in the whole tournament. Like he made big saves at the right time to keep them in those close games, even in the quarters and the semis. And he made a few big saves today too to keep them in it. So yeah, starting between the pipes for Canada and all the way out. It's hard to find any fault with the way this tournament went.
Yeah, it's like, when we lost in, was it 98? And they had the fucking hockey summit and all that stuff. Like, we got to fix the game. I don't think there's anything that needs to be fixed. Maybe, obviously, I mean, we've said it from the start. It would have been nice to see a little more speed at the back end, like a Matthew Schaefer. I don't think Evan Bouchard would have helped today because actually we were kind of playing like Bouchard in that first. My son's a defenseman and I've seen him throw less fucking lazy passes up the middle. Like that one by Devon Tays, I yelled at my TV. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
I tried to think of like US guys that stood out. And other than Hellebuyck, there's almost no guys that I remember really making any special plays. Like probably Eichel out of everybody just felt like the most consistently dangerous threat. And then Hughes on the back end makes you a little nervous every time he's walking the blue line.
He was great, and Slavin just, if nothing, nothing flashy, but just slowing things down and hard on the boards and just getting it out. And I had mentioned to you when we were watching at the first intermission, I'm like, why does it seem every time the puck's in our zone, it's just a goddamn scramble to try and get it off the boards? And it wasn't necessarily, translating to chances by the US, but it just seemed like we were in a panic mode every time it was in our end in the first, and
Yeah.
then things sort of balanced out.
Yeah, and it felt like that a bit through those last two games as well. It's just there was a little lack of composure in our own end,
Yep.
but we really had to lean on that top line throughout the last, few games more than I would have expected. Obviously, you want to ride the hot hand, but I think the US kind of rolled four lines a little bit more consistently and evenly, and they seem to have a little more depth on the defensive side.
Yeah, and I mean, they weren't necessarily generating any chances for the last 40 minutes, but they were just playing sound in their own end. Well, I can't even say that because we were just
Yeah,
peppering the goalie. Like you said, nobody really stood out. They just kind of did their job, and it was enough today.
I thought that hit from Tom Wilson that he laid on Dylan Larkin, as happy as a Canadian, and also was like wondering if as a Red Wings fan we might have just lost our captain for the year. That was a huge hit, and I'm not sure if they just shortened the bench or Larkin just didn't make any big plays, but I don't remember his name getting called after that hit.
That, you know what that hit reminded me of? Because if you watch the replay, he got up and his helmet was friggin' twisted the wrong way. And all I could think about was when you used to play and you had that XL7 helmet where if you got hit hard enough, the mask would be half off, your friggin' glasses would be all out of whack. And that's the first thing I thought about. But yeah, he kind of disappeared after that. Like I don't remember hearing his name too much after that either. And maybe it was they had one of the spotters saying, hey, you should take a few shifts off.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, but I mean, he had a pretty good tournament up until that end, and had been one of the U.S.'s best players, leading the tournament in faceoff percentage with something like 80% coming into this game, which is crazy. And I think the faceoff component of this Olympics was a bit of an Achilles heel with Canada losing, some big draws, especially on the power play. When they had that 5-on-3, they lost a couple draws that just wasted a lot of that time.
And not just losing them, like losing them clean. So it's an automatic clear right away. Yeah, it's as much as it's, you think someone could step up for Crosby. That was one of the things that, you kind of lean on him for winning these faceoffs, and the Americans just dominated.
Going into it, like, I was thinking, you hear them talking about Crosby, and I'm like, we've got so many great players here. A 38-year-old Crosby can't be the difference of whether we win this or lose this. But when it comes down to how close it was, you almost can't help but wonder whether his presence on the bench, just even from a superstitions perspective, or that little bit of confidence, could that have been the difference? But who knows? That was a bit of a disappointment. Win or lose, I hated to see him not be there to at least give it a run.
Yeah, it's too bad, but I don't know. Like we're good enough. We're definitely good enough. It's just so weird that one small thing like that, technically could have been the difference on some of these friggin' face-offs, especially the 5-on-3. I kind of also think that like Makar and Tays, they must have played 28 minutes today. Like towards the end there, and obviously in the overtime goal where he kind of got spun around and just had no gas to get back. How exhausted those guys must have been by the time we got to the end. But man, those two were awesome. I think the face-offs and just a little more speed at the backs would have been the difference. But
It's
when a
yeah,
goalie plays like that, you're just
yeah, it's
not much you
hard.
can do.
You know, we can sit here and sort of second guess, and hindsight's 2020, but you know, all the big guns had their chances. We dominated the shots, we dominated the play in the last two periods. It was a great tournament all around. You know, it's a bit of a shame because you know, I don't know how this will be remembered. Like it was a hell of a ride from that first game. Seeing the way these guys played, not just Canada, but all the teams, the quality of hockey. And the shame of it is like, can you remember any World Juniors or Olympics or anything where Canada didn't win gold? They kind of get erased from our memory, right? Like, do you remember any
Yeah, yeah.
silver or bronze performances? So I kind of thought, you know, I want to try to etch this into my mind because it won't go down as one of the great Canadian moments, but I still want to appreciate, and I'm so proud of all the guys on Team Canada that, you know, played at such a high level and came so close that just because we, you know, as much as it stings to not get the gold, you just hate to not to walk away from this and not sort of appreciate what we just saw.
And that's the shitty thing about it is, you know, the gold is the only way that it's a success. And that's not true, but that's how it's perceived, right? If you don't win gold, you lost basically.
Think of any tournament Canada got silver or bronze in. Can you remember anything about it?
I can't really. And if they're ever like if they would have been in the bronze yesterday, I probably wouldn't have even watched.
No.
That's and that's just the high expectations that we have, I guess.
It kind of really sums up this whole thrill of victory, agony of defeat sort of dichotomy with sports. You know, it comes to as fine a point as you can have when you go into overtime. And I was watching the game with Sarah, and I was like, either somebody's going to come away from this being a Canadian legend that we never forget about, or we're probably not going to ever remember any of these games. Like, it's such a drastic, you know, one bounce of the puck here or a big save there can make the difference of whether this is a legendary team or something we never talk about after a couple weeks.
That's so true. I mean, it'll be on the sports center and all that shit for the next couple days, but we're not going to talk about this or even think about it again until 2030 when it's going to be the revenge tour, I guess. Like
Yeah, it's
it's so
sports at
weird.
its best and at its worst. It's like, and it's what made this experience so great. Like watching that Czech game, watching the Finland game, these are great, exciting hockey games. And at the same time, I'm thinking, I'm not sure I'm actually enjoying the process though. Like you just have this sick feeling.
That's why today was so weird because even though we were down 1-0, I never had that feeling. I was just like, it's just, had this, it's just a matter of time here before we tie it up. And then as the game went on, I was like, it's just a matter of time before we score again because they were so in control of the game. I don't know. It's been said a million times. 3-on-3 sucks. It's a shitty way to end it. But it's hard to argue with 3-on-3 when we probably have three of the four best players in the world and we couldn't get it done.
I mentally went into that thinking, this is the moment. McDavid's led them all through this tournament. He scores this goal. He cements himself as maybe, you know, right there, 1A, 1B with Gretzky as like the greatest hockey player to ever play. I wanted that for him so bad. And, you know, as disappointed as you feel for all of the guys, you look at Connor's face at the end of this and you think, how much more of this shit can this guy take between like the two back-to-back
Oh
loss,
God.
you know, cup finals losses, and now just putting like everything out there, you know, you could just tell how much he was giving to this thing,
And
and to come up so close again.
when that stupid players tribune thing came out, where I don't know if you heard about that, how he wrote this thing about how he's ready to win again and all this stuff. Like he wrote this big thing about how he wants to win in Edmonton and all this. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, this is either going to be, a coincidence that he puts this out and wins gold, or it's going to be another kiss of death thing. And the poor guy, like, this is starting to become his legacy now. Like, what do you think about him winning the MVP of the tournament? Because I don't know how you don't give it to Hellebuyck, who didn't lose a game.
I couldn't take watching that celebration, so I just shut the TV off. So and then we just went out for a hike. I needed to decompress for a little bit, so came back in. So actually, this is the first time hearing of it. I mean, he definitely was the best player in the tournament, but he didn't really get the job done in the gold medal game.
How much do these things mean to you when you lose? Like, it's great to win the Conn Smythe and it's great to win the MVP of the tournament, but it means nothing now. We already know he's the best player in the world, right? Like, at some point, you got to prove it.
It's almost like adding salt in the wound, like as he looks at that Conn
Exactly.
Smythe trophy in his trophy case.
God.
He probably puts that thing in the basement or something. But yeah, I mean, he was definitely the best player in the tournament, and that's what kind of sucked to see. He's playing at the apex of his career, getting Canada to this spot, and to get so close. Yeah, you wanted to see it for him, for all the guys out there. You just can tell how much they put into this, but at the same time, only one team can win, obviously. I kind of went into this game feeling like it was going to be a bit of a coin flip, and it was going to come down to a lucky bounce, a big save, or something fluky. Teams were just
So
too close.
you shut your TV off, so you didn't see any of the medal stuff or anything?
No,
So
no.
you didn't get to see them. Somebody needs to explain this to me, but why they run down the medal line and then double back and hand them all a little stuffed animal? There's an awesome clip of McKinnon, who's obviously pissed, right? He missed the wide open net, could have been game, and they hand him the stuffed animal. He just looks at it like he's just the funniest look on his face, like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this thing? Such
Yeah,
a weird way to end it.
yeah, that is weird. It's kind of like those weird gift exchanges we talked about in the Four Nations. But yeah, like I said, I can't be mad at it. I'm not gonna like second guess any plays, second guess any players. We
The
played
only
great
thing
hockey throughout, but you know,
The only thing that I didn't really even think about until BX mentioned it at the intermission is it's different preparing for 20-minute 3-on-3 than it is for, in the NHL where they do 5-on-5s. I kind of never thought about that, but the US didn't put out their big guns right at the first shift where Canada had their guys out there, and then Canada gets caught deep and anyways, you know what happens, but I wonder if that was maybe a little different strategy where you would have maybe put somebody else out there first in hopes of shutting them down and then switch into the nuke line.
I actually found, like, to your point, I found the coaching aspect of this type of tournament very intriguing, because in the NHL, you're playing together all year. Like, coaches have implemented their system from training camp and had all this time to kind of like refine it. So by the time you're going into your playoff run, guys are kind of just playing the system that they've been playing all year.
That they
Whereas like it was so cool to see like the way Cooper had to like react in real time to, these single elimination games as guys are getting injured, guys are getting hot, some guys are getting cold. So you have to adjust on the fly, and seeing the different lines. To me, that was a very fascinating part of watching how he adjusted and throwing, that nuclear line out together at some points, but then switching it up. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think there was too much sort of putting the lines in a blender versus just sort of sticking with something?
like outside of that line, nobody else in Canada was generating anything, which is hard to believe. And that's a tip of the cap to the US too, right? Like they were able to shut down everybody else, and they were basically saying your top guys are going to have to beat us, and they should have. Their goalie played the friggin' game of his life. The one thing I hope that teams will learn from this tournament now is to not sit on leads, because how many times throughout this tournament did we see teams try to go into this defense, and not just against Canada, but even when Switzerland was up 2-0 against Finland, and they're like, oh, we'll just park it.
And
And
then
then
Finland did the exact same thing when they got up 2-0 against Canada, not even trying to generate offense. They're just like flipping the puck
playing
out,
it safe.
icing it over and over again.
I don't know who said it, but they say a prevent defense, all it does is prevent you from winning.
Especially that early, if you're up a goal or two with like 2 full periods left and you kind of do that sort of park the bus, go into a defensive shell, you're
It's,
kind of
and I don't know if
inviting the hockey gods to kind of bite you in the ass on
exactly.
that.
I don't know if you watched the women's game, but they played that style and it was perfect for 58 minutes. But you
Yeah.
just it's and then once it got to overtime, it's so hard to ramp it back up again when you've just been, you probably have to work twice as hard as you normally would because you're constantly defending. Hopefully, teams learn that not an effective strategy.
I guess just kind of taking a step back and looking at this tournament as a whole, it's always interesting. We didn't get the result we want, but I think what we were excited for was amazing hockey. And I think we got that in spades, not just the Canada games, but some of the other teams and matchups. So it was a thrill. What do you think in terms of like the impact of these players playing this? Like, that's got to be for guys like McDavid, Celebrini, those guys that were playing heavy minutes. That's got to almost be the equivalent of like a really hard fought 7-game series in the playoffs. Or it does make me kind of wonder how you kind of manage these guys as you bring them back into the NHL regular season.
So if you remember last time when the Four Nations ended, everyone was kind of wondering if McDavid would take a couple games off, and he didn't. He played the next night, and Edmonton was absolute garbage for like 3 games, probably because he's completely worn down. I would hope most of these guys don't play again till next Saturday. Like the league fires up what, Wednesday?
Wednesday,
Yeah, I would hope they would just take a few days off and regroup. But it's got to be tough for some of these guys that are on teams that have nothing to play for, like I guess Doughty's got a chance at getting into the playoffs, so it'll be see if he's ramped up. But like your Sanheim's going back to a team that's basically going to be lucky if they can finish in the top 10 in the East. It's got to be weird to go from the peak to back to reality.
I would think so, and especially like all those Florida guys on the team, and they may not even get into the playoffs this year.
And then like Binnington, like you just went from putting together a pretty impressive stretch, and now you got to go back to one of the worst defensive teams in the league. But St. Louis has got to be sitting there just drooling, thinking about what they can actually get now if they decide to ship this guy out.
Yeah, well, that's actually a nice segue into what I wanted to ask you about, because when you step back and look at these Olympics, it's always interesting because it's a star-studded affair, but there's some guys that just rise to the moment more than others that are just like the big game players. And obviously, as good as McDavid played, he already was, the consensus top player in the world. So it's hard for him to really improve his stock. Because Binnington is probably the first one that jumps out to you in terms of looking at guys that improve their stock. The way he played, anybody looking for a goalie to plug in, maybe your Oilers, for example, could
I'd take
be giving St. Louis a call. But any other guys that really you thought, wow, obviously they're good players coming to the Olympics, but coming out of this, they're, even taking their game up a notch.
So the obvious one is Slavkovsky, who was just incredible. Like we already talked about him, and seems like once he gets on the international stage, he takes it up a notch. But I'll stay with the same team, and I thought Nick Suzuki was awesome this whole tournament, and I kind of would have liked to see him get a little more ice time. I don't think he even hit 12 minutes today, but he just seemed to get things done and was pretty effective. Uh, for Canada in a somewhat limited role. I know it's hard to cut into the ice time of the big stars, but I thought he was awesome, and he was probably our best faceoff guy too, which was kind of odd that he wasn't out there more.
Up until the Crosby injury, he was playing on the wing. So then when he
Yeah,
shifted into center, yeah, he seemed like a much more comfortable there, and obviously had that huge goal, that tip in to make up for an empty net that he missed. But I
yeah.
agree. Yeah, I thought he was a little underwhelming in the first few games, but as soon as they shifted him back to center, he was one of Canada's better all-around players. One guy I'll throw out, not exactly, a dark horse here, but I still think you got to say Macklin Celebrini. Highly touted as a prospect as he is, and he's obviously like third or fourth in the league in scoring. But I still don't think anybody expected what we got out of him. Like, he's coming out of this tournament as I think most Canadians would probably say second, third best player on that team.
Yeah.
And the clear next guy in terms of whenever Connor's ready to pass the best player in the world baton onto Celebrini, and probably by the next Olympics, he may be the
He'll be
guy.
the guy. And think about this, like in 2 years, what's saying McDavid doesn't decide to hitch his wagon to that guy, right?
Yeah.
Because he can walk in 2 years, and you just played with him for, at the highest level. And they obviously instant chemistry there with those two guys. Could you imagine if that freaking happened, those two guys on an already unbelievably loaded Sharks team? Obviously there would be some pieces going back the other way, but that would be something to see. Yeah, he's like we talked about it last time. I thought it was awesome that they even put him on the first line, but he definitely didn't look out of place, and like you said, he might already be the second best player in Canada.
But getting to see him as much as we saw him over the Olympics here, I just have like such an appreciation. Aside from the point totals that he's putting up as a 19-year-old, just his 200-foot game, like these are the intangibles that you just don't see on the score sheet. The way he causes turnovers is like defensive responsibilities and little things like he's got this like ability to in stride. If somebody gives him a pass that's off by a couple feet, his ability to sort of just like take the pass and sort of still make the best out of it. It almost gives him this super wide pass radius where you don't need to hit him like perfectly on his tape for him to like accept that pass. And he's already thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead in terms of what he's going to do. And it just seemed like he always makes the right decision, whether it's, with the puck on his stick or positionally on the defensive side. So all around game, yeah, he's right up there with the big guns.
Yeah, it's been awesome to watch, and it almost makes me wish I lived on the West Coast and you could get a chance to see these guys more often. I do want to say before the game started, Scott Cherry, Drayton, Ontario, all the way to Italy, reffing the final. That's pretty neat, right? Like I'm gonna guess when you start reffing, you don't probably, as a ref in Drayton or wherever, you probably don't think you're ever gonna make it to the gold medal game of an Olympics. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he might have cut his teeth at like the Mild May Adam tournament we were talking about at one point and made his
I
way
wonder if the
all the way to
refs, do you
Italy.
think the refs got a free roast beef sandwich too?
Yeah, probably. Maybe not the corn. Maybe not the corn niblets though. Yeah, I was actually, it's hard to make the full comparison because they didn't win it all. But just coming back to the McDavid Celebrini comparison, it did have a bit of shades of that Wayne and Mario combo in '87 because in '87, I think this is Celebrini's second year in the league. Mario is in his third year in the league. I think it was like Gretzky's 8th year in the league in '87 and McDavid's 10th year, which crazy how fast time goes that McDavid's been in the league for 10 years already. That I was almost surprised when I saw that, but it kind of had that same dynamic. And you don't get a lot of smiles out of McDavid, but Celebrini seemed to get him to open up. Like you could just tell the pure joy that Celebrini was playing with, and you'd see McDavid give him a couple head taps or slap him on the ass or a stick tap here and there. I think his joy for hockey and his youthful enthusiasm cut through McDavid's sort of more stoic exterior at times. That was probably one of my favorite things to see of the whole tournament, is just the dynamic between those two.
Yeah, it was awesome. Again, too bad that they couldn't finish it off, but I don't know. I don't think we're in a bad in a bad place moving forward. Like it sucks that they lost, but I don't take I'm not taking it that hard because they did dominate the game. It was just a shitty way to lose.
Watching the Americans celebrate, I was in a dark place for, well, maybe not a dark, that's a bit overstatement, but I was like, I don't want to watch this, so I just had to walk away for a minute. And then by the time Sarah and I got out on the trail for a little bit of a hike, yeah, I was like,
So
I'm okay with this.
you didn't see they had the Goudreau jersey. I thought that was a nice touch too.
No, I didn't see that, but yeah, that would have been,
They were
yeah, a
skating
cool.
around with it. That was a pretty cool thing to see. They were a little happier receiving their stuffed animals than
Yeah,
Nate
I
McKinnon
bet. Yeah.
was.
So, where do you think best on best hockey goes from here? Like we had the Four Nations last year, which was kind of a sub for the All-Star game. Now we have the Olympics. I don't think it's feasible to be doing this every year,
No.
but it'd be nice to have something in between the Olympics, like sort of like how we have Euro Cup and then World Cup sort of staggered, so you have like one of those every 2 years.
Yeah, I can't even fathom the fact that they're talking about they may not go to the next Olympics. The back of the Four Nations and then all the hype going into this, and that's all anybody's talking about. To now say, no, we're not going to do it, seems like it would be a horrible decision. But I'm with you. If they can get some sort of, even if you want to bring back the Canada Cup and get all these
Yeah.
teams back in it every, 2 years, and then you got your Olympics. I don't know. I think after seeing that, and not just the Canada games, but all the other teams, like everybody's catching up. So why aren't we capitalizing on this? And why don't we want to see this?
Obviously, the Fiala injury is kind of
Yeah, that
heartbreaking, and
sucks.
for those guys, and Crosby going down. But those things can happen in practice, and the net positive of what this does for growing the game of hockey, I just come away even more proud of the game, of the players, and
Yeah, I hope they can figure something out, and I hope they keep going because it's, I probably watched more Olympics than I was expecting to watch, but just the anticipation and everyone's got their favorite team, but to just have everybody sort of unified, like I was at work for most of the Finland game, and when they tied it up, and you can hear a cheer going through the whole plant, and like horns beeping, and I'm like, this is what it's about. It's just brings everybody together, and I'm sure it's the same in all the other countries too.
it's really what, sports is all about. We talked about the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, but all throughout the process, you kind of bring people together, and you grow a sport, and you see, you know, all the great things of teamwork, and these guys, sacrificing for their country, for their teammates, and win or lose, we saw a great show, and yeah, I'm almost now looking forward to watching some games that don't give me anxiety attacks, like through most of it, because as fun as that was, I'm like, Jesus, I don't know if my heart can take any more of this
No kidding.
Olympic action. Those last three games were intense.
I'd say I agree. It'd be nice to just get back to just watching and not stressing.
Yeah. Well, maybe we wrap it up there, Charlie, from our Olympic breakdown. But it was nice to be able to have a little bit of that cathartic discussion here, kind of getting us back to baseline, managing our emotions, and we can look forward to some good NHL hockey and a nice playoff run here down the stretch. Maybe we switch it up here and go to our trivia question for the week.
All right, so we're gonna stick with the U.S. theme. We talked about Patrick Kane becoming the highest scoring American player ever born. So it got me looking into some other things. And today's question is, can you name the highest scoring American defenseman that played in the NHL? I'll give you a little bit of a hint to go with it. He played for 8 teams, right in our wheelhouse of watching hockey. So it's, not a crazy name you've never heard of, but highest scoring American defenseman of all time.
Okay, well, there's one name that popped into my head right away, but we'll give a little time for myself and the listeners to think about it. But before we jump into the report card section, I did want to do a little follow-ups to our trivia from last week, because we were trying to guess who had the record before Phil Esposito with the 97 points. Of course, it was Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita. You had brought up Gordie Howe, which was surprising that he wasn't in there. So it kind of made me curious to go back and look at what Gordie's stats were. He did have one 100-point season. I think it was 107 or something like that, but it was the same year Phil got the record with 123. So we were wondering whether he ever crossed the 100-point plateau, which he did once.
Yes.
But for the most part, he was right around that sort of point a game or slightly over. On the goals side, again, he was pretty consistent. He had 49 goals one year, and I think 44 were his two best goal seasons, but never cracked the 50-goal plateau. But I think it was just consistency. He never had any real down years, and he played a hell of a long time.
Played 40 years.
Yeah. So anyways, I just thought that would be like a fun little follow-up for the listeners. I was personally kind of curious going back and checking that out myself. So with that said, let's head to the report card segment for the week. Why don't you kick us off?
I've been reviewing your work. Quite frankly, it stinks. These reports you handed in, it's almost as if you have no business training at all.
All right, I got an A for Team Canada curling. I just want to say thanks for spicing up the Olympics a little bit. A sport that I don't really follow. I mean, I'll watch it, but I'm not glued to it. But I watched the women's bronze medal game, and then I watched all of the men's game, and I just think having a big personality and, a little bit of controversy really gave him a boost. And I kind of want to go out and try curling again. Like, I'd like to get into a beginners league, because it seems like something I would like to try. And I've done it a couple times, but never on a team. It was just kind of thrown together in a phys ed class or something. But big A for Team Canada curling, gold and bronze.
That gives me an idea. I've never curled before either, but I think getting a little
Buddy.
hazy bonspiel going when like we could, we've got the Buzz Management Invitational Golf Tournament. Maybe maybe the winner version of that is, the hazy Tournament of Hearts or something like that.
That would be awesome.
But anyways, yeah, well, that's a good one. I'm actually going kind of broad on this. I'm going an A+ for hockey. Just like we talked about, this Olympic experience has been amazing. Seeing best on best in the Olympics for the first time in 12 years. Seeing guys from all countries bring their A game. So many exciting games. And just what I think this does for people's appreciation for the game of hockey, growing it globally and bringing more fans to the game. I think hockey is a winner from this Olympics on the men's and women's side, and A+ for hockey.
All right, I got an A+ for CBC coverage of the hockey, and for one main reason: no stupid shit about gambling. Like, it was such a nice treat. You got this 5-person panel, and I don't have to listen to Cheryl Pounder put together a same game parlay for me. Like, it was just so refreshing. And don't get me wrong, I love gambling. I like putting bets on these games, but I'm so sick of hearing. There was one instance this year, and Ron McLean's telling me who a good bet for an anytime goal scorer is. And I'm like, what are we doing? And I know they're getting paid, but it was just nice to not have any of that shit in any of the coverage. So A+ for no gambling.
I've actually got a little sub segment of that one. I've got an A for Kevin Bieksa and Elliot Friedman. I just thought the chemistry between those two, I heard them on the broadcast, also on podcast, and you could just tell those two guys were having a lot of fun being out in Italy. And I love when an authentic personal connection like that comes together and it comes across on the broadcast as if they're really having as good a time out there watching these games, covering these games as we are watching it at home. And Elliot Friedman's got the monochromatic suits, Milan style. He's got the hair slicked back. He's embracing his European look. And he just dropped one of the most classic lines after that Czech game, which I think just captured the essence of what we were all feeling after that stressful game. And he just comes on, he's like, I need a cigarette. And I just thought he nailed it. So I thought those two in particular were awesome. So A for Bieksa and Elliot Friedman.
All right, I'm handing out another A, this time for Doug Ford. And this has nothing to do with politics. The guy's pretty much a real life cartoon character, from the bee flying into his mouth to him trying to dump out the Crown Royal bottle. But, loosening up the laws a little bit so the bars and everything can open up at 6 in the morning. That's how you govern a city. The laws are laws until they're not laws. So a big A for Dougie. Keep going.
I love it. I have another sub-segment of our panel, and I've got a D for James Duchy. I don't know what it is about him, but I do not like this guy. They were interviewing Gretzky, and he was trying to ambush him with this U.S.-Canadian politics question, almost like subtly questioning his Canadian loyalty on the panel. And I just thought, you can't ask the great one that question, James. You're not there yet. There's something about that guy that just feels like a real weasel to me. So I'm giving him a D.
All right, I got an A+ for Connor Hellebuyck. I know this is probably going to cost me my Canadian citizenship, but the guy's been plagued with, not being a big game goalie and has struggled in the playoffs and finally got the first round monkey off his back last year, only to get put out in the second round. But I don't think you can play a better game in net than he played today. Save on Tays, whether it's luck or whatever. That's got to be the single best highlight of this entire Olympic tournament. And all you can do is just, give the guy his due. He played an amazing game, so A+ for Hellebuyck.
I'm giving a B+ to Lucas Raymond. I had a chance to really watch him grow and develop over the last couple of years on the Red Wings. And although Sweden didn't really get the job done on their end, I think he kind of led the charge for them. He tied Mats Sundin for the all-time Swedish scoring record in the Olympics. He had some beauty passes, some beauty goals, just like the puck retrieval and his overall leadership. It was just great to see. I think he was Sweden's best all-around player, and nice to see a Red Wing kind of go there and show that leadership. So excited to see if he brings some of that confidence and swagger back to the Red Wings for the playoff push. So B+ for Lucas Raymond.
Before my last one, I also should say that Dougie Ford put up Don Cherry for the Order of Ontario too, so I can't leave that out. All right, my last one, I got an F for Ron McLean. I'm just done with this guy. Railroading Don aside, he just brings nothing to the broadcast anymore. And it's just, the stupid puns to get out of a segment. And like today, they had this amazing intro with Sam Roberts. They played I Feel You over top of all these highlights of the Olympic hockey. And the first thing he does is say that he played hockey with Sam Roberts. I'm like, that's awesome. Nobody gives a shit what you did. So an F for Ron. You're washed up, buddy. It's time to get somebody new in there.
I got an F for the slam dunk competition. I don't know how many of the highlights you've seen, Charlie, but the few that I saw from the most recent slam dunk competition look like barely dunks that are any better than what you would see in the warm-up. I feel like we're like one step away from just somebody going up and doing a finger roll in the slam dunk competition. So again, I'm kind of hating on all things all-star games, but the players just don't give a shit about this anymore. Why should we care as fans? F for the slam dunk competition.
And I can fix the slam dunk contest, just like I fixed the halftime show last episode. If you go on YouTube, go on TikTok, whatever, and look up Jordan Kilgannon or any of these guys that are professional dunkers, let these guys do it because they're doing shit that you've never seen before. They could probably actually use the money and it would be 10 times more exciting.
Charlie, you're out here solving the world's greatest sports problems. We need you to get you in the front office there because that's another great idea. Yeah, like put people in that actually give a shit about it.
Exactly.
But that's a great report cards for the week. So let's head down the stretch here for our outro. Time to come back to the trivia question.
All right. So we're talking U.S. hockey, and we've talked about who the highest scoring American is, of course, Patrick Kane. But today's question is, can you name the top U.S. born defenseman who leads all time in scoring?
Well, I'm not going to overthink this one. I'm going to go with my first gut instinct, and the first name that popped in my head is Brian Leetch.
That's an excellent guess. He's number 2 and 14 points behind number 1.
So the other guy that I had as a backup, not a prolific point guy, but played a shit ton of years, Chris Chelios.
Number 3. Almost 300 points behind number 1. This was a surprise to me. I actually thought it was Leach, but it's not, obviously. Do you want me to throw out the teams he played for? It might actually make it...
Sure, yeah.
All right. I'll go in descending order because the first 2 make it pretty obvious. But he ended his career with the Blackhawks. Before that, the Leafs. Before that, the Penguins, the Florida Panthers, the Calgary Flames, St. Louis Blues, and then his 2 most famous stops, the Winnipeg Jets and the Buffalo Sabres.
Huh.
He's got 1,232 points.
Phil Housley.
You got it. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Phil Housley.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he played for so many teams, but I knew he played for the Leafs, but I don't remember the Pittsburgh run or the Calgary run.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, he played a long time. I thought it was Brian Leetch for sure. I was almost ready to nail that on the first guess, but that's another great question. Yeah, I had forgot about Phil Housley.
Just to round out the top 5, so you had 2 and 3 with Leach and Chelios. Gary Suter was number 4, and then Kevin Hatcher number 5. But those point totals are going to be crushed by Quinn Hughes and whoever else is coming up. Yeah, because they got to be close already. Because Hatcher's 5th, and he's only got 677 points. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a great one. Like you said, those ones are right in our wheelhouse from our hockey card collecting days. All right, Charlie, well, let's wrap it up. You know, I'm kind of like bittersweet going back to the NHL. I feel like I'm going to miss this high-level Olympic play, but at the same time, I feel like I've missed sort of the regular day-to-day entertainment of the NHL. I'm excited to get back to the Red Wings and see how they do. Your Oilers, they picked up Paul Coffey here, which you know, could be a sneaky good move. I don't know if it's more from an X's and O's standpoint as much as just having that championship pedigree standing there. It's kind of like the Sid thing, you know, just having a guy that's won all those cups that, you know, has played with great players before. A little bit of a swagger and confidence can't hurt.
And when he was there the last time, they completely transformed the way they played. So I'm not sure why he was let go because he was doing a hell of a job. But yeah, it's going to be tough to get back into, you know, it's going to be hard to get excited about St. Louis, Toronto on a Saturday. But trade deadline's fast approaching. You got to think, you know, St. Louis is going to be having a fire sale. I can't imagine Parayko and Binnington's value be any higher. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go.
As we get to the last month or so, every regular season game for a lot of those teams is going to feel like almost a playoff type atmosphere. So this is where she ramps up.
That's right. And we should mention we're going to start doing our second Wax era legend too. And who do we got on tap for this one?
We got our old buddy Grapes here. We did a little bit of a tribute to him when he retired his podcast. But as you mentioned, he just got the Order of Canada award. We thought it was pretty timely to do a little bit of a look back on our favorite Don Cherry moments, not just from the coach's corner perspective, but taking a look at him as a player, as a coach, and sort of the total package that he was and everything that he delivered to Canadian hockey along the way. So looking forward to diving into that, and he'll be our next feature on episode 31. So, with that said, hope you enjoyed the Olympics. We'll look forward to catching up with everybody with our first NHL update in a couple weeks. Until then, you be good now.